Hello, everybody, and welcome to this conference. My name is Veronica Iliescu, and I thank you very much for joining me today. I am the CEO of Cablescom, which is part of Henton Group. And the purpose of my presentation today is to share with you some issues of concern that we face today in our businesses. We read and discuss about them every day. Inflation is rising sharply. Transportation is not anymore reliable. Goods, material, and energy are more expensive every day. We note shortages and delays for many supplies. How does this issue affect our industry, and how do we manage them? For how long will we face this constraint? This is what I will talk to you today. I will start giving you a short overview about the causes of the prices rise for the materials, and then we'll see how the supply chain became more complex and much less reliable. Of course, I'll focus then on the effects of all this disruption on our industry and our businesses, because it's what we are more interested in. And in addition, I'll share with you my thoughts about how this could go further. At the end, I hope we can open a debate and summarize together some good ideas for the future of our industry. We'll start situating ourselves in the current global context. The year 2020 is remembered for the pandemic, but 2021 delivered also a very important share of the unexpected. All countries, all industry in all sectors have been hit, and we were obliged to address very carefully this major crisis. The pandemic challenges all the businesses to prepare for a newly uncertain future. To understand better what we face, we should refer to the difference between risk and uncertainty, as defined by Knight in 1921. Risk. In the case of risk, the outcome is unknown. Risks have a narrow range of outcomes with probability that can be estimated, can be measured, and therefore we can insure against them. So we can measure and decide how to manage risks. Uncertainty is present when the probability of future events is not defined and it's not calculable. So we don't know what we don't know. We have both an unknown outcome and an unknown probability distribution. Therefore, we cannot measure and we cannot insure against uncertainty. For example, COVID. When the pandemic first hit, we didn't know the probability of getting sick. And if we fell ill, we didn't know the probability of suffering a more or less severe case. So that was clear uncertainty. The same with our businesses. We have usually plans for risk management, but we were prepared for a pandemic because there is no reference case for the COVID-19 crisis in the living memory. So we face today some of the unpredictable effects of this pandemic, together with other already existing factors. How does the uncertainty appear? We face today a cocktail of consequences of this pandemic. We have increased prices as a result of the shortage of raw materials. We have an energy crisis, we have disruption in the supply chain, and we have a lot of labor issues. So all of us, we would like to go back to normal, but what is new back to normal? What is the new back to normal? And when will we be there? I'll try to focus today on the price increase for the material and energy and on the supply chain constraint, because these factors are affecting us a lot. So let's go deeper now and analyze what happened with the material prices. The material prices have sharply increased. The energy, gas, and electricity also. And both of them had pushed inflation up. The International Monetary Fund confirms that there is a mismatch between the demand and the supply, and this is the main cause of the sharp increase of the price. Some organists foresee that inflation could decrease in 2022 when the current disruption in demand and supply will stabilize. But let's analyze what happened. So, as we know, the pandemic obliged us to lock down. Factories stopped and supply lines were cut suddenly. China has been hit too this time, and extra restrictions were added to the supply chain. The restriction to avoid contagions made maintain factories and supply chain at half low activity because there were more cases and we had to take care of our businesses and of our employees. So the supply capacity has been dramatically reduced. At the beginning, prices did not rise. Why? Because there was a simultaneous collapse in demand at the same time as the collapse in supply. So demand and supply at that time, at the beginning, were quite balanced. When the factory started again, they could not reach the same rhythm as before. You know, we are all used that when a factory is stopped and has to start again, the rate of output is not the same. On the other hand, we still had some restriction for COVID. So demand started to go up, but supply was not able to cope. So bottleneck appears and prices went down. In the case of energy, the prices for energy and gas have also increased. The figure for the global European community are approximately 20% increase for gas, 15% for carbon, and much more for electricity. Of course, the price increase for the gas is due to market, geographical, and political factors combined, and not only to the market factors. It's clear that delivery time are relevant, very relevant for measuring the price pressure in economy. So let's see now what is the point of view of the head of procurement of the companies. I will present to you the global PMI suppliers delivery time defined by IHS Markit, a leading source of information in critical areas of businesses. So they use data for more than 40 economies worldwide for this index. Purchasing manager participated in the survey conducted in 44 countries, received the following question. Is the delivery time slower, faster, or unchanged on average than 1 month ago? So the index is a calculation based on the percentage of answer faster and same. If the index is less than 50, that means that delivery time are longer, which means worse. If index is more than 50, they are slower, that means better. So let's see how this survey can give us an idea about the prices trend. So as I said, the index helps providing a very valuable information on developing inflation trends. To the left, you can see that in 2020, this index dropped to lower levels than previous years. Remember that less than 50 means lower. That means that the situation was worse than before because the delivery time was slower. To the right, we can see the trend of the inflation and the trade for the delivery time. And we can see that over the past 14 years, the PMI index shown around 80% correlation with global consumer price inflation. This means that actually this index gives us an idea about the inflation trend. That means that delivery time is crucial for analyzing what's happening with the prices. We can also see that this index can be used to make direct comparison of supply chain pressure by sector. And in this chart, I want to show you that suppliers' delivery time index for the major manufacturing sectors were not good. So all of us, we are hit by the price increases. What about our industry? This information, we all know this information, and maybe it's one of the data that we analyze every day because it's now one of the main issues that we have. So here you have some chart indicating the price evolution for the main materials and energy, main materials that we use in our manufacturing. The fiber, according to CRU September data, the fiber price is increasing. So significant volume of fiber are kept in China, and with the last information from the China mobile tender, we know that volumes increased around 20% and cable price around 50%. Of course, for sure, fiber prices are going up too. Polyethylene prices increased between 40 and 70%, and there is shortage and there are delays. There are other materials that suffer delays, and in some cases, huge shortages. Energy prices increased, as I said before, due to market, geographical, and political factors combined. So we saw before that the prices for materials went up, and one of the reasons was the delay. The delays can be explained with a constraint in the supply chain. So let's analyze this issue now. Well, the supply chain can offer us high competitive advantage, but only when it's efficient. And now, and in the recent past month, it wasn't. The more visible effects in the inefficiency in the supply chains are the delays and shortages of the products and material, as well as the much higher cost of manufacturing and delivery. Therefore, our services to our customer is being negatively hit, and our earnings are highly impacted. But if we see after seeing the impact, the most visible impact of the supply chain issues, let's see now what are the drivers of this crisis. Well, to understand what is happening, we can use again the classic scheme of demand and supply. In this case, supply refers to manufacturing and transportation, and demand refers to consumption. The drivers for the demand are, we all know that after and even during the lockdown, the consumers could not spend on services because we were in the lockdown. But we were not afraid to spend, and we spent on goods. That means that global demand of goods increased a lot, and suddenly. On the supply side, what happened? At the beginning, factories and ports shut down and suffered restriction labor to avoid outbreaks. This created a lot of delays, a lot of shortages and bottlenecks because product could not flow smoothly as ports were shut down. For example, we know that 7 of the busiest ports in the world are located in China. China was locked down. Moreover, in August 2021, Ningbo Short was shut down due to COVID. It's one of the biggest ports in the world. On the other hand, we had labor shortages at port in trucking and logistics and manufacturing, and these are the first major supply disruption. We also had flight reduction. I hope that you know, I recently found out that 50% of air cargo flies on passenger flight. So this is why our tickets are less expensive. Due to COVID, these flights were stopped, and this sharply reduced the capacity of air cargo and sharply increased air cargo prices. Another driver, container ship challenges. There aren't enough large container ship to meet all of this demand. We don't have enough room to put in all the goods demanded. What happened with Ever Given in March caused a strong delay with high impact on global supply chain that was already constrained. And then we have the deficiency of the infrastructure in the ports. So physical infrastructure constraints are limiting a lot the ability to change shipment around different ports. Not all the ports are prepared to receive the ships. So we need a combination of trucking and railways infrastructure. It's not only the port, but it's everything. And we need also this to be near a population center, because if not, there are not efficiency and nobody is interested to use a port with no efficiency. And of course, on the other hand, we have the bullwhip effect. What we doing? We order more than we really need because we are afraid of shortages and price increase. And we increase the demand artificially. And this put a lot of pressure on the supply chain. So if we put all together, on the one hand, we have a surge of the demand for goods. And on the other hand, we face strong, big supply challenges. And the result of all this is an increase of the shipping prices, shortages, and a lot of delays. To the previous fact, we should add that there is a high concentration in this sector. We have 10 companies controlling 85% of the capacity of the ships. So competition between the carriers is reduced and there is a very low room for rate negotiations. So shipping companies had losses in the past. Of course, now they are taking advantage of the higher demand and of the reduced space in the container, and they increase prices. What should we expect in the next future? Well, I'm not expert on this, but after discussing with some experts, some of them say probably that this will last till the second half of 2022, and others foresee that we'll need to wait till 2023. Actually, we don't know. The solution is very complex because there are very many drivers for this crisis, and to solve this crisis, to solve these drivers is not fast, it's not easy, and it's very expensive. There are bottlenecks in every link of the supply chain. We have bottleneck in labor, in shipping, in containers, in ports, in trucks, and railroads, in air, and in warehouses, everywhere. And the company consulted are not very optimistic. So they say that the main driver of this crisis is the demand. Yes, of course, but will demand decrease enough to match the supply capacity? Will the demand decrease on time to match the supply capacity and to take out pressure of the supply chain? We don't know. So reaching a balance will take time. You know, the situation is similar to a traffic jam that needs times to start again flowing smoothly. Let's see now how these constraints affect our industry. Well, for our industry, and summarizing the previous, we have the same situation. We face a demand increase, and I'm talking about fiber cable. And at the same time, all the issues commented before, we also face them. So we have manufacturing and logistic cost increase, we have delays, we have shortages. And we face the same situation as all the industries. So really, we are different, companies are different, but at the end of the day, we all face the same problems. On one hand, we as manufacturers, we see our cost increase. We cannot organize properly our production flow due to the delays and shortages of the materials. We have the trade unions increase their request as the inflation rate are going up. We have much more difficulties to maintain the appropriate service to our customers, and we risk to receive penalties. And of course, our commercial margins are eroded because sometimes the price to our customers must be fixed, but the costs are increasing. And on the other hand, we have the customer, which are not our enemies, and they also have a lot of issues and a lot of troubles. So they are confused because they cannot receive the answers to their questions, and they cannot receive the service they deserve because sometimes we even don't know when we can supply, or we don't know if or when we have to increase prices. And this is very complicated for both of us. So all these factors, if we take these factors separately, they could be addressed and maybe solved using the management tools that we already know. But all together at the same time represent a huge threat for the economy, for our sector, for our companies, and the crisis will be very difficult to be recovered. Let's summarize now all the issues we've seen before. Well, everything we analyze should be done without forgetting that the COVID and its effects are still here. In these circumstances, we have all the businesses under a huge pressure of uncertainty. And in this condition, we must assure, on one hand, the viability and profitability of our operation, but at the same time, we need to take care of our employees' health and safety. We must protect them from the coronavirus. Most companies faced important crises and challenges in their history. So we have the knowledge, we have the experience to manage tools to overcome crises. But today, we are in an uncertain environment and we face several challenges at the same time. So managing them is extremely complex because I remind you that we are not talking about risk, we are talking about uncertainty. So the question is, if we are used to manage crises, can we consider the new challenges as we call business as usual? If this is business as usual, maybe it would be enough to implement the well-known actions of cost reduction, productivity improvement, and to add to this new technologies to make our operations more efficient and more resilient. Artificial intelligence could help us normally with predictive analytics. Maybe we should rethink our supplier bases, and probably we should also think in the relocation of some manufacturing facilities with the main criteria of winning resilience to face future external shocks like the one we have now in the supply chain. However, under the umbrella of the uncertainty, is this enough? Do you think that businesses can be managed as usually and put in place our risk management plan? In my view, the answer is no. My opinion is that we need a totally different approach because we have been in the middle of the pandemic and its consequences for longer than many of us expected at the beginning. So no country, no company, no executive team, no individual leader or professional has been immune for COVID-19's impact. Therefore, our strategy cannot survive fully intact. So I will go back to the uncertainty management. As said, we cannot foresee the risk, we cannot evaluate the consequences. We cannot manage uncertainty the same way that we manage risk because uncertainty is not risk. So what can we do? From my view, I think we must see the world as it is and not as it was. And moreover, we must see the world in the different way that we would like it to be. We need to be more flexible than ever. We need to adapt ourselves more than ever. And we need to be open-minded and accept that we don't have the answer. It's not a problem to say we don't know. We need to accept that solutions that worked in the past are maybe wrong now. And we need more than ever to be transparent with our customers, with our supplier, and maybe with our staff. What will be the consequences of this crisis for the companies? Well, it depends. It depends on two factors, in my view, on the crisis duration and on the health of the businesses. As always, strong and healthy companies are probably today less concerned, and maybe they have more possibilities to overcome these difficulties. Weak companies face this crisis with much more concern. They are worried because they don't know how they will face and how they will get out of this crisis. And for this reason, maybe they will learn faster and do better than healthy companies. We never know. And of course, for all the businesses, the duration of the crisis is a key issue. Longer the crisis, bigger the concerns, and higher the pressure to afford. Well, that brings me to the end of my presentation. And as I said, I didn't pretend to give solutions because I don't have them. I just tried to give an overview about the causes of our increased manufacturing and logistic costs. And we saw how we face the cost increases, the delays, and the worst, the shortages of our main materials. Our margins are eroded, and our service to our customer could deteriorate. Penalties overfly us, all of us. How can we maintain our costs down? Should and can we share cost increase with our customer? How our business will like in 1 year time? Well, rather than giving answers, I leave some questions for your consideration. I sincerely think that we are all going in the same direction and we are doing our best and learning how to manage our businesses in such a new and terrible uncertainty. Well, I like to close with Seneca's quote, the Roman philosopher, a phrase that I like very much and I consider quite appropriate for us today. He said that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. The future will bring us what we are prepared to receive. And as I said, I wish you, all of you, good luck, all of us good luck. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope we can have some interesting debate now.